We are so happy to have you back. Okay, you've heard it before, but you can never hear it too much. You are the best podcast audience ever. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Not only for listening, but for sharing and commenting and telling us what you want to see and what you want to hear. And because of that, you're going to be very excited who's with us today. So look at, you know how I always tell you that you're going to feel something? You're actually going to feel like taking action. And the action that you're going to take is wherever and whatever time you're listening to this, you are going to go, either going to go into your phone or you're going to snuggle up and get ready to watch some really good late night TV. You are going to be inspired and you're going to be motivated. You're like, I need to get back to that late night TV thing. Oh my gosh, we're very excited because John Di Domenico is in the room tonight, and he is an MC and he is a keynote, and you've probably seen him before because he's a very famous impersonator. And this gentleman, Emmy Award nominated entertainer. John, thank you so much for coming on Mission Accepted.
Oh,
Thanks for braving up.
thank you for having me. This is great.
This is great. Look, it's rare that I have met someone that has such a colorful origin story, like
Mm.
from where to when to how to oops, okay, sounds good. What are we doing? I'd love for people to get to know you a little more because I think you have a great following as an MC and people know you there. And then there's some people that have had a little bit of late night stuff. They're like, oh, his voice
Yeah.
sounds kind of familiar. And then impersonating. I mean, that's so incredible. And now
People love the impressions, I have to tell you. They love it.
they love
Very
it.
incredible.
There you go. All right. Well, with that lead in, let's go. Tell us a little bit about
Oh.
you.
Well, I'm from Ambler, Pennsylvania, right outside of Philadelphia, and my mom was just a homemaker housewife. My dad was a World War II veteran. And well, I was 40 years old. He was 40 years old when I was born. And it was a very, what's the right word? A contentious, fighting household. They did not get along. And it was a row home neighborhood. So it's kind of a pressure cooker. It was I was born in 62. By the late 60s, the whole neighborhood just seemed like a lot of domestic disturbances. We had the cops at our house a lot.
Okay.
And I was always looking for affirmation from adults in the neighborhood, just some kind of way to connect and be recognized. And because my father is kind of emotionally absent, but I discovered I loved to do impressions, and I was a big ham on top of that. I came out of my mom with a top hat and a cane. I was one of those type of kids, and I used to watch the Ed Sullivan Show, and I would see John Biner on the Ed Sullivan Show. I know I'm dating myself, but
No,
it
that's
was
okay. You know what? All of us date ourselves. We
yeah.
take ourselves out for dinner. We go to movies.
But I would watch Ed Sullivan now right here on our show, John Biner. And then John Biner would come out and say, right here on our show, the fabulous Garbaccio brothers. And I was amazed as a kid that John Biner could sound like Ed Sullivan. It was kind of remarkable to me. And I practiced and I practiced and I basically learned John Biner's act. And a week later, as all my neighbors were sitting out on a warm night, they're all sitting on the steps of their row home. I walked up and they were, what's he doing? And I went into John Biner's act and they laughed and they loved it. And I got all this affirmation. It was just for a kid, it was so great. And you can talk to any actor, any performer, any stand-up comedian. When an audience reacts to you like that, it is the drug. It is the drug. And I was hooked right away. I was like, wow, this is great. And I kept doing the impressions. And then I was going into, I was in kindergarten, but when I got into first grade, my mom was amazed by the impressions because I had a severe speech impediment.
Right.
So when I went into first grade, they immediately noticed I had a speech impediment and I could barely speak. But when I did impressions, the impediment was gone.
Wow.
So I was diagnosed, and then I did 8 years of speech therapy. And they broke everything down and kind of rebuilt my speech. They worked on throat placement, nasal placement, jaw placement. The most important thing, tongue placement, because that was the main problem. Everything in my mouth is too big. I sounded like Elmer Fudd. So I learned all these things and I love the fact that I did impressions. So as they were teaching me these things to correct my speech, I was kind of pulling them in and reverse engineering them to do more voices. And by the early 70s, Columbo was on. And as a kid, I was like, wait a minute, I can do his voice. Folks, I hate to bother you. I'm a little confused, sir. So I started to learn all these little things and the physical things. And I was just one of those kids who wanted to do everything. I wanted to be an impressionist. I wanted to be a comedian. I wanted to make movies. I wanted to be an actor. And through high school and college, I was lucky to do all those things. And I knew I needed to be in New York. I had to be in New York if I was going to do that. But I knew I couldn't go to New York as an actor. I had to go with some other skill. So I started working as a copywriter in Philadelphia and building my book. And I was building my book as a copywriter. And I was about 2 years in, and I got into a comedy troupe in Philadelphia, and everything changed. I just ended up staying in Philadelphia and building my comedy career there and doing more impressions. And it was one of these things that just happened organically. And I started doing film and some TV work and then got to New York and did off Broadway and off Broadway and New Jersey theater. And I really, and I let, yeah, off. I was way off, but I got a little closer. And I ended up a theater company and then doing stand up. And, like you don't have a career path. You think you do, but you're just going in all these places. And as I was doing the acting thing in New York, I kept getting calls to do characters. Hey, we know you do this voice. Can you do the character? So that became a big part of my life for the last, I don't know, 35 years. It's full makeup. So if anyone goes to my social media, you'll see I'm in full makeup, Jay Leno with a prosthetic chin, or, totally dressed up as Austin Powers, baby. Yeah. So it's the full Austin Powers gear with the teeth and the wig. And that was kind of my specialty. And then in 2004, I started doing Trump. And obviously, in 2015, my life kind of changed because I was one of the few people doing Trump full makeup, full wig, theatrical wig, the whole bit. And I ended up on 5 different late night shows. I did 5 years on Conan. I was on James Corden. I was on Chelsea Handler. I did one spot on The Colbert Show, and I've worked pretty every now and then on Kimmel. So then I ended up on the cover of Los Angeles Magazine. I did a bunch of parody movies, and I've just had this really amazing career as an impressionist impersonator. But along that time, I saw the future way back in 1996, and I got my very first corporate booking. And anybody who's listening who's ever been to a corporate meeting, I did my very first corporate meeting for SAP. There was 5,000 people. And I just remember thinking, I think I'm in the wrong place in a comedy club in Pittsburgh. I, I think being in a massive ballroom making 10 times the money is a much better place with a totally engaged audience. And one of the elements of a corporate meeting is a keynote. And for years, I didn't really think about it. I loved being an MC host and being a comedian, but people have been saying to me, you should be a speaker too. You should speak on the human voice. And I thought, yeah, I guess you're right. I do have something to say because I still struggle when I speak. You would know it, but because speech issues are neurological issues and you have to overcome those, and it's a mechanical issue. So what I speak on now is how we can improve our voice because the average person only uses 35% of their vocal capacity and range.
Wow.
And we are in a point in history where You and I are doing it right now. More people are on camera, more people are on stage, more people are on Instagram, Facebook, all of these things. And the average person who is doing this type of work has no vocal training. And in a sense, if you can't hear your own voice, then you're missing out, because the most people think the way they hear themselves in their head is the way they sound. And that's not the case, because the human head lowers your voice about a full octave. So to you, your voice sounds deeper and richer. And also, there's a neurological part of your brain that blocks your voice. Otherwise, you drive yourself crazy.
Right.
So the way you sound, the way you actually sound to other people, and the way you think you sound are two different things. My goal is to bridge that gap, get people to listen to their own voice, have command and control of their voice, as I do as a person who does impressions and speaks professionally. But the only reason I think about this is it was the first thing they taught me for my speech impediment, to overcome it. The speech therapist and the speech pathologist drilled it into my head. If you can't hear yourself, then you can't fix yourself. And that is what I'm preaching to people, to become a more effective speaker, to be a better influencer, to be more persuasive. Because let's face it, every conversation we're having in any given day is persuasive. It could be to a client, it could be to your assistant, it could be to your kids, to your spouse. We're all wanting to accomplish something. And a lot of times that is in persuasive mode and influencer mode, but in a healthy way, not in a bad way, in a positive way. So that's my life in a nutshell. That's kind of the arc. And I love the human voice, and I love all impressionists, and I listen to people, and I get so much out of it. And my ears are really finely attuned to really great speakers, because I see so many keynote speakers with great content, but their voice, their cadence, their monotone. And you're like, oh, this person just needs some coaching, not on their content or their keynote, just so their voice connects to the listeners. And the research has proven if you're speaking at a slower pace than the audience is receiving it, their brain disconnects.
Yeah.
It's better to speak faster than to speak slower. It's better that people keep up with you than drop out. So that's
there's lots there. Isn't there lots there? That's incredible. I have a couple of questions. Obviously, you answered one of them, which is why someone should pay attention to their voice. And most people that are learning how to speak or present or host or MC or live auction or whatever it is, they are they have a lot of concentration around the content. What they're going to say, when they're going to say it, how they're going to open, how they're going to close. Interesting that we don't hear ourselves. I think that was, mic drop. Never mind the pun intended. When you shared that with me when we had a conversation a while ago, right? That you don't hear yourself.
You don't hear yourself.
You practice to yourself. Now, I have this question because I heard it, which means someone out there is thinking it, is when you listen to yourself. So I'm like, obviously, clearly, if you have your phone and you listen to yourself, is that different? Like, are you able to hear your voice differently than when you record and listen?
Yes. Well, yeah. When I speak, I say, who has heard their voice recorded? Pretty much everyone on earth puts their hands up. And I ask the second question, which is, who hates their voice? And people can't get their hand up fast enough. Oh, wow. Everyone hates their voice because it sounds foreign to them. That is not the voice they hear in their head. They hear a richer, deeper voice. Right. And your brain, the part that blocks it out, you're not hearing that. So one of the important things is, and I say this here's a couple of things. I always give out earplugs so people can, hear themselves. Record yourself speaking, any kind of speaking, which is the first thing you want to do. if you're a presenter or whatever it is, read an article in the paper. Secondly, and this is what most people don't do, record yourself on a phone call or a Zoom call.
Right.
Because if you read an article or something, you're still in presentation mode. You're kind of
Mhm.
overthinking it. If you watch and record a phone call or a Zoom call, that's when you hear yourself. Maybe you're too nasally. Maybe for men, a lot of men, they think their voice is deeper or they want it to be deeper. There's things you can do to lower your voice. There's different
Oh,
things you can do to clarify your voice. A lot of people aren't speaking. This is the vocal mask, and this is the
okay.
where your voice should be coming out, and your voice should be forming right about here. The full sound of your voice should be right about here. And a lot of people are kind of throat talkers. They talk in the back of their throat or something like that, or they're head talkers where it's being pushed up through the top of their head. If you're able to speak through the vocal mask, that improves clarity dramatically. And it takes
Very,
time. And
very
yeah. And one of the other things I have to do every day, and I did this today, and I had a show last night. I do my warm ups. I do the tongue twisters, different types of tongue twisters. And there's two reasons for that. One, you just want to warm up, but secondly, you want to know where your tongue is. The average person has no idea where their tongue is in their mouth because they don't think about it.
You don't think about
But
it until you're
yeah,
listening right now. I bet you everyone just kind of went, yeah. They had to
where's
think
your tongue?
about where their tongue is.
Yeah. And one of the things I was taught to do, it seems silly, but it's such a big help to me. Before go on stage and speak, I have a whole bunch of things I step through, but I go like this: A, B, C. I do it 26 times. And what I'm doing is biting the back of my tongue. Not to the point where you break it.
No, no,
It's just
no.
like, oh, there's the back of my tongue. So it's just building an awareness. Because one of the things speakers always say when they first start speaking, uh, what do I do with my hands? What do I do with I didn't even know these were here. That's the same thing.
Right. You're like,
You don't know where your tongue is. You don't know where your jaw is.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's all these little things that you can do to improve the sound of your voice, not the content of your keynote.
Right.
That's on your other coach.
That's on someone
That's
else's. That's your other
that's
coach.
somebody else. Yeah.
Yeah.
My whole thing is your voice
Hmm.
is so valuable. I mean, it is your trademark.
Yeah.
I say this throughout my speech. You have a Ferrari in your throat. It is a miracle. It's literally a miracle. And most people are driving that Ferrari like a Ford Focus. Those are the ones that are only using 35 to 38% of their vocal range. Mariah
Yep.
Carey has a
Yep.
5 octave range.
Right.
And I'm always amazed. I always ask this question when I'm on stage. I say, okay, everyone knows vocal cords, right?
Yeah.
They're actually vocal folds, but I say let's refer to them as vocal cords. How many vocal cords as humans do we have? And everyone, and I hear all kinds of numbers. I'm
Really?
amazed. Oh yeah, because I always tell people I talk about the guy who has the 10 octave range,
Okay.
Mariah Carey the 5 octave. I'm purposely misdirecting them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But the thing is, the fact of the matter is, you only have two. You have two vocal folds. That's the same two that Mariah Carey has and Andrea Grande or any of the singers,
Right.
male singers,
Ariana
female
Grande.
singers.
Yeah, yeah.
Ariana Grande, who is truly an incredible singer. She is so amazing. But it's the same thing. It is the same thing. And one of the elements of voice is breath. And I think
Hmm.
you're so on top of so many things. You know that there's a big movement right now with breath. and breathing and being aware of breathing. And there's a Linhoff method and all of these different things.
Mm-hmm.
When you speak, you are breathing life. And that is why it's so important that you maximize your voice. Same with your body. You go to the gym,
Right.
you work out, you want longevity. If you're doing certain vocal techniques and warm ups and strengthening your voice and getting that range, you can be 85 and still have the same voice that you had when you were 25 years old. And I always talk about, because I love to work in the impressions
Mm-hmm.
and talk about someone like Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton does this thing where he just empties his lungs and he just speaks and speaks and speaks, and you can see him constricting his
Yeah.
vocal cords. Hey, has anyone seen Hillary? Neither have I. But everyone has these different
Yeah.
ways of speaking. But if you're emptying your throat out, you're emptying your lungs out. That's not a good thing. You want to be breathing in between all of these things, keeping your lungs full. Because if you're doing a keynote or when you're on stage, you
Mm-hmm.
speak for a long time. And you have these people like halfway through their presentation, you can hear their voice dropping off because they haven't done the vocal work. They've done where I'm standing here on this line and I'm standing here on this line and
Right,
I'm going
right,
to be
right.
right there for the dramatic thing, but their voice isn't getting the attention. And I just feel, I mean, like this, I've become an evangelist for
I
this.
can see it. I can see it.
Yeah. I want people to have fun with their voice and make that connection. I always ask, who are some of your favorite voices? And people always say, Morgan Freeman. And he is the perfect example. People love his
Mm.
rich, deep voice. But if you go back to his early, and he's a theater actor, so
Right.
he's vocally trained. But if you go back to his early film performances, you can hear his voice is not that deep. He himself, in interviews, has talked about going back and making his voice deeper and richer, especially when
Wow.
he got into voiceover work, because his voice, if you watch him, his voice was
Yeah.
higher. So even he, as someone who was trained vocally, was like, I think I can do better. I can go than like an athlete,
Yeah.
like a peak
Yeah. Yeah.
performer.
You perform.
I'm going to go even deeper. I'm going to make my voice even richer.
Right.
And that's if you can do that, if you take the time, the average person looks in the mirror anywhere from 12 to 52 times a day, either on their phone, in a mirror, on a reflective surface, in a Zoom.
Computer.
Like I'm looking at
That's a
myself right
challenge.
now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But and I always say, if those same people who
Right.
never listen to their voice just 5 times a day, spent 30 seconds listening to their voice, recording something, recording a
Right.
video,
Right. Right. Right.
getting in, doing what they have to do. You start to hear those patterns that you may want to undo,
Right.
change, figure out where you're not breathing, where you're not hitting things right, looking where your lip placement is, where your jaw placement is. Am I speaking through the vocal mask when I'm speaking? And this isn't just stage time. I keep mentioning
Yeah.
keynotes, but this is in every aspect of your life. And of course, you have to change it for a 5-person sales team or 500 people on stage or your children. And people kind of sometimes push back like, oh, I don't want to change my voice. I'm saying, well, you work out, you want to change your body, don't you? And they're like, yeah, of course. I'm like, well, this is the same thing. You're underutilizing something which has unlimited potential.
Incredible. So I'm going to ask a couple questions, and I have a couple of different questions for you. So
Yeah.
one of the questions that I want to ask, which I'm sure everyone's having, going off in their, the bells are ringing. What is the time? Like you do classes, you do workshops, you do coaching, you do this kind of thing. Obviously, if people are, wanting to train their voice for being on theater or being on stage or whatever, they may
Right.
have more of a vested interest. But just hey, I want to be a little better at my voice. I want to understand it. I want to hear it. I want to be able to project what does something like that take in terms of time to achieve the goal that someone would have of utilizing more of their voice? And I know that might be
You,
a vast question, but
it, it, it is, in a sense, you can see changes within a month because
okay,
it's like anything else. It's, like Atomic Habits. You have to do it and you have to be consistent. And,
right.
and I'll, and to be honest,
Yeah,
or, if it's been a long day and I'm tired, and by the end of the day, my Phillyisms start creeping out,
yeah,
I
yeah,
can hear, because I can hear myself.
yeah.
Oh boy. So it's a constant kind of thing, like working
Okay,
out and eating right. So
okay.
but you can see real positive changes within a month. And then it's like anything else. You have to be consistent. And if
Okay.
you're taking the time, to the next time you're ever in front of an audience or you're on a Zoom call with
Hmm.
business, before you do it, and this is everybody,
Right.
take 5 minutes, or I'm going to even reduce it to that 30 seconds. Take that
Yeah.
time, record something, and listen to your voice. And then you just want to keep expanding out.
Right. So it's something that you learn and then it becomes lifestyle.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I want to ask a couple of
Absolutely.
questions because I know that we're getting close to time a little bit.
Yes.
I'm going to shift us a little bit. I'm going to go back to here you are doing your thing, having fun, impersonating. All of a sudden, you get that first call to go onto a late night show because we told our audience that they're going to feel like going on a late night
Yeah.
show. I want to have that conversation a little bit. For some people, that would be like a life-changing call. For some people, it would send them into fear. For some people, they would sabotage and all like go. Some people, they'd be like, I'll be there tomorrow. What was that like for you? What was that like for you all of a sudden getting, because you talked about the recognition on the sidewalk with the neighbors, how good that felt. You
Right.
obviously had some recognition. What was that? What was
It
that?
is. It's amazing, and I'm glad I've had small doses of celebrity because I don't think I could stand it full time. But that very first call, I was very lucky. A friend of mine had just taken over Red Eye on Fox News.
Mm-hmm.
Tom Shalhoub. I had done theater and stand up with him in New York, and he literally had just taken it over. And Trump had just announced. So the timing couldn't be better. It was like, hey, you want to be my Trump on Red Eye? So I made a bunch of appearances on that. Somebody from Conan O'Brien, and I wasn't paid on Fox. So
Right.
the stakes were high and low at the same time because I'm like,
Okay.
I'm going out nationally, but I'm not getting paid. And I'm with a friend.
Yeah.
Then the call came from Conan's people. I was like, what? What? Yeah, somebody saw you and they'd like you to be the voice of Trump on the show. They have some sketches that they want to do. And I was like, really? And it feels like all of your work over all the years, because I love Conan. I think he's an amazing, innovative comedian. And to be on the show and this is important too, as a union actor, to know you can be making union money, which is really
So for all actors out there, hey, even like, yes, money. You can get paid
money,
for your craft,
money.
whatever your gift in
And
the world is.
then to fly to Burbank because I'm here in Las Vegas, so it's an easy
Right.
40-minute flight, and then to go
Yes.
to Warner Brothers Studio. I cried. I
Yeah,
cry.
that's
I'm a film and movie nut. And to walk on to the Warner Brothers set, and I'm going there to work and to say to the guy at the security booth, I'm John Di Domenico. I'm gonna be on Conan today. And they're like, and they don't care, but they're just okay, yeah, let's go ahead. But to me, that's a big moment.
that's a big moment.
I'm at the Warner Brothers lot. I'm going to be on Conan. I'm going to be on national television, and you can't get cut. I've been cut out of a lot of movies, but like you're not going to get cut. They're flying you in to be cut.
Yeah.
So it was so gratifying, and you're in this business for decades. I mean, decades. And one of the things that kept me going for a really long time was Groucho Marx, who I'm a huge, huge fan of, didn't appear on film until he was 41 years old. 41.
Big
I
shout
think I
out to
was,
Jojo.
yeah. And I think I appeared on film when I was 42 or something like that. But that's what kept me going. And those moments where they have you on a show like that are incredible and amazingly memorable. You know what the best part is, though? When they call you the second time.
I was just
And
gonna say, when it started and then you went here and then you went here, were you like, did you either went one or two directions? It was like, you can't believe it, can't believe it, can't believe it. At a certain point, you're like, maybe I should raise my rates. Maybe
yeah,
I should be increasing my bill.
my agent was highly aware of that. So all of a sudden, the union stuff, it's fixed and,
Yeah,
can
yeah, yeah.
negotiate a little bit more. But I ended up getting a commercial, which was, I didn't make 5 million, but it had a $5 million budget. It had a Oscar winning director of photography on it. And the director was really well known. And I got paid the most I ever got paid, the most. And my agent negotiated that for days. 4 days. She had a number she wanted for me, and she negotiated and negotiated and negotiated. And we were shooting on a Monday morning, and it was 6 o'clock on a Sunday night. And I called her and I said, "What is happening? Am I shooting tomorrow? Because I got to fly to Simi Valley to shoot this commercial." And she goes, "It's almost there. We're almost there." And to me, it's like 6 o'clock the night before.
Yeah. You're like,
This ain't happening. This is not happening.
Yeah.
And an hour later, they say, "Go to the airport. There's a ticket for you. Fly to Simi Valley." And I arrived like 2 a.m. Simi Valley. A car picked me up, and I sat in this limousine asleep until my 4 a.m. call time in the makeup trailer. And then we shot that entire day until we started losing the light. And that's the wall commercial. I don't know if I sent that to you, but it was the biggest thing I've ever shot. Hundreds of extras. They built a wall. I'm supposed to be Trump in front of the wall.
Yeah. You said wall. I'm pretty sure we could put together.
You get it. You get it.
Yeah.
And then when it was all done, I saw the final edit. I was like, wow, this. And then it went viral.
Wow.
And I was,
I'm sure.
and it was one of these things that was just totally life-changing. And because of that, I ended up speaking to the European Parliament as Trump. So everything leads to something else. If I hadn't started doing Trump in 2004,
right. When what, Celebrity Apprentice or something? Like
Celebrity Apprentice had come on, and I had met Trump.
Yeah.
I had met Trump in 1990. And if you look at all the characters I do, they're all big characters. Guy Fieri, love piece of taco grease, baby. I love big characters, man. You know that.
Yeah.
Driving the bus of Flavortown. So I love big characters. So I met him in 90. I did a show at his hotel then, and I just thought, wow, he's a really interesting guy, and he's the big persona. And, I adopted him in 2004 and started doing him and was working corporately, doing everything from team building to after dinner speeches to roasting people in character. And all these things that you do years out eventually come together, and not just as a performer in so many other businesses that you may not see the incremental change. It's like the whole bamboo thing. Like it's like the first 5 years, the bamboo grows like this much, but in the fifth year, it shoots up 12 feet. And I had a bamboo moment in 2015 when he announced, and my life just changed. It's literally changed.
It's literally changed. I think that, a lot of the time, so we talk about what are the things that were the catalysts, what is, everyone, we're mission accepted, right? This is our audience are people that are starting the mission, wanting to start the mission, needing support to stay on the mission. When is it going to happen? What should I do? What's the success meter? What's important to me? What's important to you? And all of these things that they get from our guests. And I think that, I tend to ask people, what's some of the most important things that you would suggest around business? And as I hear you talk, I don't want to say it's patience, but I think it's high level patience. Like I love that example of the bamboo. No one, by the way, on the show has ever done that. So yeah, you, but that's quite interesting.
The bamboo thing is, and I think, and if you listen to any actor, and I mean anybody, the first 10 years of their career pretty much doesn't go anywhere. They're working for sure, but there's that 10-year point. And I've spoken to a lot of actors, I've seen a lot of interviews, and then it happens. But to your question, the thing is, you've got to love what you do, while you're doing it. You
Mm-hmm.
know, this is the oldest cliche in the book. It's the journey, man. It's
It's
the
the journey.
journey. And you know, there'll be times when I'm in a McDonald's, not that I eat in fast food, but you're in a place like a McDonald's, and
Right.
there's a person behind the counter who's like, man, they can't, you can tell they're just, with every ounce of their life, they can't stand being there. They don't even want to interact with you. And then you'll go to like a same type of place and there's a person, hi, how are you? Good to see you. What can we, if you can be in a place where you know this is not the final place, but
Mm-hmm.
you're acting like it's the final place, if you
Yeah.
can be working on a tiny micro budget movie or business,
Yeah.
and you it should be an Oscar winning movie, give the Oscar winning performance in the micro budget movie, because everybody holds back. Oh, I'm not gonna, uh, when things are better you'll get all of me, but right now you're gonna get what this is worth. And if
Yeah.
you give the maximum value at all times, because it doesn't cost you anything to give your best,
Yeah.
that's when you'll get to that place. And I firmly believe that if you can constantly give and love giving, you
Mm-hmm.
know, it's like gratitude.
Yeah.
If you can wake up every single day, you could be in a refrigerator box or a mansion. If you can be grateful for what you have and be grateful for what you will have, and grateful what you did have, if you can be in all those places at once and be present, I think everything moves forward for you. That's at least what I found.
Yeah. There's a lot of mic
And the
drops
most and
today.
the successful people I've been around, like you're a very present, grateful person. And you and I have not met, but we've had these conversations, and I get that from you. And
Yeah.
that's an amazing gift you give somebody in a conversation.
We're going to wrap up pretty quick here. And I wanted to ask you, so our tagline is playing it safe, never made history. And someone could listen to what you were sharing and we could pick out the risks, standing on
Yeah.
that sidewalk. Look, it's not easy to be an impersonator for some. Some people would never get on stage, will never get on stage. For some people, when their friend called and said, hey, can you come do this for free? Maybe not have done it. But you have lived what some people would consider a risky
Yeah,
life,
it
of the
is.
risky. But when you think about two things, now you've explained some cool things that have happened as well, but for you, what was one of the biggest risks? It might have been an internal moment. It might have been asking for something because you weren't used to asking. Like, what was the risk? Maybe it was calling that agent that you thought maybe was a little out of reach or a little expensive. Like, what was the risk behind what looked risky?
The biggest risk for me was getting out of college. And like I said, I was a copywriter, but leaving that job and betting on myself, where
Hmm.
all my friends real jobs in offices or insurance, their dad's insurance firm, or they were a dentist. But the day I left the advertising world, and I was home on that Monday, and it's like, well, it's all on you.
Yeah.
It's that betting on yourself. And it's so crazy when you think about it, but that's kind of the beauty of America in a sense. It's like, I'm going to be an entrepreneur and I am going to make this happen. I'm going to be an actor, or I'm going to make widgets, or I'm going to do this. And it's that having that faith in yourself that you can do it. And I've said this before. We live in a time, this incredible time in history, where there's so much information. And if you want to do something, somebody else has already done it. And there is
Hmm.
a roadmap. You don't have to follow that roadmap, because mine's been like this.
Right.
But each time, like that very first time I did a big corporate meeting, I went from this direct. Well, I actually split off and kind of did both. But I was like, oh, I didn't know this existed. So you have to have that determination and tenacity, but also be flexible, that when you see something and you totally get it, to move into that at that area. because if you feel it internally, then that's the most important thing. And I'll say this, the times I've denied my gut, those are the times I've made my biggest mistakes. I don't know what it is, but your gut will tell you if you're in the right place or in the wrong place, if you're in the right direction, you're in the wrong direction.
Well, the gut, the famous second brain, right? The
Yeah.
famous second brain, the quiet second brain. I'm going to wrap up with this, and then I'm going to have a few words with the audience that's been enjoying this as much as I have. Think about it maybe for a minute. Fill in the blank. I couldn't live without. You couldn't live without. Finish that sentence.
I couldn't live without my connection to God, to have something bigger than me that I can reach out to and turn to and connect with.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. We so appreciate you sharing today, and so appreciate you dropping so much wisdom within your story. It is no surprise that you command the stage, and I look forward to learning a little bit more about my voice, and so do other people, I'm sure. Our incredible producer is going to be putting all the information for people to do that. I'm going to just share with the audience a little bit. Look, whether you have a big story, whether you have a personal story, it's kind of like a good book. A good book comes to you when it's time to read it. I always believe the teacher shows up when the student's ready, and the student shows up when the teacher's ready, right? And so if you have something that you want to share, if you have something that you want to impart, whether it's one of our stages, whether it's a podcast, whether you're putting your messages in our books or what have you, there's this really easy website. Funny enough, it's my name. Just go there and drop to the bottom of any pages and go, it's time for me to be seen. It's time for me to be heard. And you too can be sitting here like John. We're going to be wrapping this party up, John. Is there anything that you want to say before we release the balloons and they go to the sky?
Yeah, baby.
Yeah, baby.
Yes, 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 yes. No, it was, I'm so honored to be on your show. You have such an amazing following, and just to have this time with you has been amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'm sure it will not be the last. All right, audience, you know what to do. You know what to do. Thank you so much. Share, do your thing, contact us, enjoy, contact John, go learn how to activate your voice. I think it's incredible. Remember, 35%. That's not a lot. I mean, my audience has things to say and people to persuade nicely. So give John a call. We will see you here again next week. And until I see you again, you be well and you stay groovy. Bye for now.